Welcome back to a brand new season of our GC360 podcast, filmed right here in our Garden City, New York media studios. I'm your host, Victoria. On this show, we talk about everything from breaking news to common everyday topics such as relationships, business, sports, finance, health, and education. And now you can stream our GC360 podcast on all major streaming platforms. This episode is brought to you by Alliance Services, helping older adults to continue to live well and independent. On this episode of GC360, we are discussing how Long Island schools are adapting in the age of COVID. And joining me today in studio to discuss this is my very special guest, Dr. Sinha. While Dr. Sinha earned a master's in clinical social work from Columbia University, she discovered that her passion was for education, driven by a need to help and serve young people and educators. She then earned a doctorate in instructional leadership from St. John's University and currently serves as school superintendent for the Garden City Public Schools right here in Garden City. Thank you for joining us on GC360 today, Dr. Sinha.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now, before we jump right into the questions I have for you, let's talk a little bit about Mrs. Lavelle, one of the teachers at your school. She recently won our Essential Workers Award during the Virtual Village Show.
Yes, well, Miss Lavelle, she is definitely one of our unsung heroes. So we were so happy that we were able to nominate someone, and she was recognized as an essential worker. She really went above and beyond, and she continues to, by the way, especially since our school closed, and helping not just her colleagues, but all of us. She lifted all of us, including her students. I was recently in her classroom a couple of weeks ago, and there's magic in her classroom. She's engaged with her kids. The kids just love her, and she goes above and beyond, and I believe she'll continue to do so till she hopefully retires from Garden City. She doesn't go anywhere else.
Not leaving you guys. So she sounds very well deserving, and that's why she won that trip to Jamaica, which I'm sure she'll be enjoying soon.
She's excited about going to Jamaica.
Who wouldn't be? So tell us about your role and responsibilities as the superintendent of Garden City Public Schools.
Well, it's, being a superintendent, and we have, the responsibilities are pretty vast, from ensuring we have over 3,900 students in our district, and making sure that all of our students are being, educated properly, and that we're going above and beyond for our kids. So we have, like I said, over 3,900 students. We have, in terms of our faculty and staff, well over 750. We have our own transportation fleet of transportation, our department. So our students, as soon as they leave their home, they're with someone from our district. So our transportation, our bus drivers, they're just as important as our teachers are. When they come to school, they're the first people they see. They're welcomed and greeted with a smile, and hopefully when they go home, they're again back on our buses, greeted by their bus drivers, and they're taken home safely. So it's a big responsibility we have. Parents entrust their children to be with us from the start of the day till the end of the day. We take that very, very seriously.
Wow.
That we're taking care of them, that they're happy, and with all that, they are learning. So that's our responsibility. So as a superintendent, my job is to ensure that that's happening.
That's amazing.
You
manage all that. I could barely manage myself, and you manage all these people under you.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't do it alone. I have an amazing team of colleagues, our central office administrators, our building administrators, and along with our teachers and our staff. We're all interdependent on each other. So I don't do this alone. I'm very, very fortunate to have a great team of people around me.
Wow. So while your students were quarantined and remote learning at home, how did you ensure that they continued their lessons plans, and what role did the parents play in this program?
So, it was roughly about a year ago, March 16th was the day that we fully went remote last year. And we were fully remote from March 16th till the end of the school year, last school year. It was a very challenging time for us all. So parents were vital in that process. We have never taught in that way. Our teachers were never, we're not trained to be teaching while our kids are not in front of us. So there you needed. Parents were holding our teachers' hands in many ways. So they were an extension of us at home for their children. And it was very challenging for teachers, challenging for parents, challenging for our students, because it's hard to be teaching from a screen and learning from a screen. So our students were during that time and continue to show us the resiliency, the resilient kids, our teachers, their adaptability of teaching in a new way, our students' adaptability of learning in a new way, and then also for our parents, they were also extremely resilient and adaptable to figuring this out. I mean, when you think about it as you're too young to have kids, but when you have children, they are your prized possessions, right? And you want the best for your kids. So when you're feeling as though they're not learning or that they are struggling socially, emotionally, that's very, very difficult for parents. So the partnership is so critical in a normal year, but when you have a year like this, it becomes even more important.
Sounds like it was a learning experience for everyone. Everyone had to step
Absolutely.
up, fill new roles.
Absolutely.
So we understand that the Garden City schools have fully reopened now. Can you walk me through the process and how you brought the students back into the classrooms?
Sure. So I'm going to actually go back a little bit. So, when this happened last year, we didn't know where we were going to be in September. The guidelines were changing very rapidly from the state education department to, the safety, the New York State Department of Health. There were lots of changes happening, and we had to put together an opening plan for September. Our goal, when we started this process, our goal was how do we bring our youngest students back? Because they needed to really learn how to learn, right? They don't know, how to read, how to do mathematics. So we really started with our kindergarten, first grade, and we wanted to bring them in first. One thing that I should mention, in our district, we're unique because we have 3 K-1 buildings. So these are real community schools. So we only have kindergarten, first graders in these 3 buildings. And then we have our elementary. We have 2 elementary buildings, and then we have a middle school and a high school. So our goal was, how do we bring our kindergarten, first grade kids back first? And we made changes. And the changes we did was we took classroom spaces and took everything out of it, really, pretty much. So we had desks so we could do the social distancing of 6 feet. That's what it was. We had to maintain that. So how do we do that? Well, we took everything out of the classrooms and ensured that the spaces, that we could accommodate as many students as we could. We decreased some of the classroom sizes because of space. So we were able to bring our kindergarten, first grade. Then we said, you know what, let's try second grade. We were able to do it with second grade, then third grade, fourth grade, and then we did it even for fifth grade.
A little bit at a time, phasing in.
We had it planned for September, but the planning process, we started that early, figuring out how do we do this? How do we bring as many kids as we can for especially our K through 5? And we were able to do that. Our students in one of our buildings, which was our Stewart School, we actually took them and brought them to the middle school. And we used all of our large spaces, our gymnasiums, our cafeteria, so any large space so we can bring in our students. So we were able to, we actually even used our library spaces. So because of thinking outside of the box around how do we utilize our space, our furniture, our staffing, we were able to bring our students back. Our 6 through 12, they came in every other day. We also equipped our teachers with better technology, with laptops, with cameras, with speakers. So when they were teaching kids that were coming in every other day or kids that were fully remote, learning virtually, that teachers had the equipment to be able to deliver the instruction, and students were able to really get the instruction in the way it was presented with the technologies. Last summer, we also actually expanded our bandwidth because we were looking at our internet capabilities that, in terms of our, that if everybody's on a device
At the same time,
that we're not frozen and that, kids have access to it. So that's another piece that was important. So we did a lot of work over the summer to ensure that was happening. We also purchased Chromebooks for kids. But believe it or not, there was such a backlog of these Chromebooks. We didn't get them till just recently, believe it or not.
Wow.
But our kids, our 6 through 12, they had a one-to-one device. We did have that for them. We made sure we had that. But it was a time for us that we were learning and kind of just making sure our safety protocols were in September. And what we focused in on was the wearing of the masks, that we ensured that our faculty, staff, and our students, that everybody wore a mask. The socially distant piece we had in place. We had markers put on our hallway in terms of flow of traffic in our hallways. We even did that.
Wow.
And hand hygiene, washing of hands. We put those measures in place. Hand sanitizers, we had that everywhere. So there were lots of planning to ensure that the kids are safe in our schools. And to be honest with you, now that we are a full year into this and all of our kids are back, we've been pretty great because we haven't had transmission within our schools. So even though we have positive cases, they're coming from outside of school,
Wow.
not within our schools.
Not in the school. I think it's incredible how you guys adapted so fast with all the constant changing variables, but it sounds like you guys have a handle on it.
I give a lot of credit. First of all, our kids, they have been probably, talk about adaptability and talk about having to come to school in such a different way. They're amazing. And I always say this, we have the best kids in Garden City, and we truly do, because
Sounds like it.
they have adapted. They have, and really, when I say that, it's really all of our students, all in all of our districts and in our communities. They've had to adapt. Our parents have had to adapt, and we've had to adapt. And I think we're stronger as a community because of it.
Yes, definitely. Speaking of changes, the CDC recently updated its guidance on physical social distancing in schools. Like we mentioned, it went from 6 feet to 3 feet, especially for students wearing masks. Do you believe these updates allow for adequate safety for your students?
Like I said before, there's the transmission in the school. We haven't seen that because we've created such a controlled environment within our school setting with the mask wearing. We're enforcing that. We're enforcing daily screening. We are making sure that we have, in terms of cleaning, disinfecting, we're doing all of that. And our air ventilation. So those are things we did that way back in September, and we've monitored those areas. So I think now that we are fully open, and it's been, we started bringing our kids back in February, our secondary students, they're back, and we have not seen that the transmission is in the schools, even now, because we have those desk barriers, which we were required to have, because I think we're enforcing the mask wearing in a way that I really believe that we're okay. If you had asked me this in September, I would have said something different. I would have said, that I don't see how we can do anything less than 6 feet. But I do believe that we have learned a lot more about the transmission of the virus. We have learned more about what we need to do. And I think the big one is the mask wearing and making sure the ventilation is proper in those spaces for kids. And right now, when I think about our high school, we have 1,200 students in our high school roughly. And we have students that are remote, and we also have students that are coming in every other day. But when you go into our schools, it's especially during when they're changing classes, our hallways are pretty packed. And we have not seen that type of increase because our schools are fully open at this time.
So it sounds like it's a safe environment.
I believe so. And, you continue to monitor, and you continue to look at your data. And we do that on a regular basis. We're monitoring our data. We're making sure our protocols are in place. One of the things that we did do very early on, way back when we opened, we formed a team. I call it our problem-solving team, where we were meeting every single day when we first opened schools. Now we're meeting twice a week. And our focus is this team, and it's administrators, it's our director of facilities, our head nurse, our central office administrators, and the focus is on what are we doing well, what are some glitches that are or challenges that we're facing, and how we're resolving it. And it's all focused on keeping our schools open. So we're committed to keeping our schools open. And I'm really proud because we haven't had to close our district. We only had to close one building for one day throughout since September. So the focus of this group is how do we continue to keep our schools
Stay open.
Stay open, look at our data,
Mhm.
make sure we're monitoring. Are we seeing any trends in our schools and how are we addressing it? So, so I think we've done a pretty good job with that. And I
Sounds
think it's
like
going
it.
to continue till the end of the school
Yes,
year.
I hope. As a result of the pandemic, what tools do you think educators have acquired for better teaching with their students?
I have to tell you, I've been in education for over 20 years, and what we have learned as educators this past year and our growth, I don't think I've ever seen this level of growth of, particularly in the area of technology. How do you leverage technology for teaching and learning? How do you leverage technology to build connections with your students and families? How do you leverage technology for collaborating, working together? So we are using probably more in that way of our own learning. And how do you use time better? How do you make sure that you're teaching those essential skills to kids when when you're in this type of an environment? So I think there's more laser focus in a very different way, and I see that as a silver lining as part of this pandemic. When you think about it, that's been a silver lining for us where we have probably learned the most during this time, and we've adapted the most, and we have actually taken more risks. In education, we don't tend to take as many risks, but we have taken more risks than ever before. And we're learning at all, at different time frames. Our school day ends, we're still learning. We can still hold a meeting because you can do it through Zoom or Google Meets. That we didn't do that much before. So I see all of this continuing, and how do we, for next year and the years to come, how do we take that and use it in a way that we're reaching our kids even more? So
technology definitely played a vital role in all this.
extremely.
Yeah. So now that all the Garden City Public Schools are reopened, tell us about some of your goals and initiatives to continue the great work that you and your staff are doing with the schools.
So that's actually pretty exciting. We are in the midst of our budget process, and we actually presented our instruction part 1, and we're presenting our part 2 this coming week. And we have lots of great things planned for our kids. And we had it planned before. We had to put some of it on hold, but they're continuing. Mm-hmm. And really looking at our spaces differently, and how does that space lends to learning, for student learning. So for example, this summer, we're revamping, we have a brand new space for our students in the science research program. Really, it'll be state of the art with technology, and where kids are able to use that space for their science research. We just recently did our high school library with much more, there's more flexibility within that library space, where students have a quiet place. We have a mindfulness room there. We have another spaces where kids can really work on their own, and they're leveraging, again, technology. At our middle school, we will be redoing our library space there, and we have a collaborative learning commons that will be another space for kids where they're doing more interdisciplinary work. We'll be creating that space. And another area that we're really excited about is on our high school campus, where we're hoping, if our budget goes through, to have a greenhouse with a sustainability research center.
It sounds like the pandemic allowed for more opportunities, all these cool
things. These things are more of the skills that our kids are going to need for the future. Mm-hmm. And how do you embed those skills within the curriculum? And these are some ways. We're also kindergarten through 12th grade. We have a very strong computer science program for our kids, where next year we'll be introducing artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. And I think those things are important skills kids learn. They're thinking mindsets that kids learn through that process. So we're excited about bringing some of those things to our students and developing the program. We'll be working on it over the summer. And we're also very fortunate. I actually should have said this even earlier. Our PTA, our Parent Teacher Association, they're amazing. We have the PTA, we have the special education PTA, there are various parent groups that do so much for our schools, whether it's through fundraising to helping us with supporting our initiatives. So they've been a real partner to us as well. So we're excited about bringing some of these new learning opportunities for our
definitely.
kids.
Well, you guys are a strong community, and it sounds like you all work together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We couldn't do it alone. Couldn't do it alone.
Now, before I let you go, we recently learned that some of your amazing students created and produced this mini-series right before the pandemic started. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Two of our students, Sarah Featherston and Ryan Murphy, they actually, even before the pandemic, they were doing this. They actually wrote the script, the soundtrack also for this web series. There's about eight mini series, I guess I should call it. And it's around topics that are really important for teens, from abuse to gun control to identity. And there's 11 of our students that were involved in creating all of this. But Sarah and Ryan, they're the ones who wrote this and worked very, very hard in bringing this to where it is. I really encourage folks to watch this. It's on YouTube. It's called, again, Lockdown. And these two students, what they have created, I'm in awe, because, the creativity and the time commitment. I mean, this was something outside of their regular school day. And they had started this, I think, filming in January, right before we actually closed. And then they did all the editing, and it's unbelievable. If you watch it, I got emotional watching it.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
I'm gonna have to give it a watch. It sounds awesome.
Absolutely. And the information on that is actually, we did stories. It was a Newsday this past weekend, story on both of them, and the information is on our website too.
Oh, all right. So if parents or students would like to learn more, get updates on the Garden City Public Schools, how can they go about that?
Again, on our website.
On your website.
Yes, we have I try to do a weekly communication. We post everything on our website. We actually highlight some of our stories there too. So, it's a great place if you want to feel good, especially right on our homepage, we have lots of good news about our kids on there. So
awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sinha, for joining us in studio today. We appreciate all the amazing work you're doing for our Garden City Public Schools, and we would love to have you back soon, maybe for some updates.
Thank you so much for having me, and absolutely, we'll always come back.
Of course. And thank you guys for tuning into our new season of GC360. If you'd like to rewatch this episode or watch any past episodes, you can on our website, gc360podcast.com. I'll see you guys next time.